In The Godfather, Mafia Don Vito Corleone is the subject of an assassination attempt by the drug dealer Virgil Sollozzo, whose deal Don Vito turned down. Sollozzo wanted protection from the law and the courts for his men as they move around the drugs, which Don Corleone felt was too risky. The Turk's play was backed by Corleone rivals, the Tattaglia family, and when Vito is shot, his son Sonny goes to war with the Tattaglias. It is Michael Corleone, World War II veteran, college boy, a man who does not approve of his father's way of life, who gets roped into the family business when the Turk wants to meet him to discuss terms, given Michael is a civilian and therefore not in the game. Sollozzo is also bodyguarded by police captain McCluskey, making him virtually untouchable as there's no way a mobster would kill a cop, let alone a captain. But of course, that's exactly what the Corleones do, and after Michael shoots both the Turk and the captain dead, he flees to Sicily to lie low, while a mob war erupts back in the States between the Corleones and the other families. Back in the old country, Michael, who is disenfranchised from his culture and family, develops an understanding of the mafia and the old ways of doing things. He wanders the countryside, visits the old Corleone home, and even falls in love, marrying a young Sicilian woman. Throughout the duration of his exile, Michael is flanked by two bodyguards, Fabrizio and Callo. Callo is quiet and unassuming, and Fabrizio is the more talkative of the two, acting as a spokesman for Michael, for example, when he asks for Apollonia's hand in marriage. Fabrizio was a shepherd who worked for Don Tomasino, and he and Michael become friends during Michael's time in Italy. However, a bomb is planted in Michael's car, which goes off with his wife in it, killing her instantly. The way in which Fabrizio asks about Michael's trip and the way in which he walks away from Michael before the bomb goes off makes it clear that he was involved, most probably having planted the bomb himself. Michael recovers and begins his transformation into the cold, ruthless Don he would later become, largely in part due to the death of his wife at the hands of Fabrizio, something which he never recovered from even in his old age, as the third film shows us. But the young shepherd is never mentioned again in the film, presumably having fled to Corleone enemies. The hows and whys are not really important. Don Tomasino makes it clear that Michael has enemies, and they know he is in Sicily. That is enough to tell us that somebody bribed Fabrizio to betray Michael. Even still, there are clues to Fabrizio's intentions early on. He yells at US soldiers on passing trucks to take him to America, suggesting that Fabrizio wanted to emigrate. In a deleted scene, Fabrizio says to Michael, "Tell us about New York." And Michael wisely replies, "How do you know I'm from New York?" And he replies, "We heard. Somebody told us you were real important." In the same scene, he says things like, "Is America as rich as they say?" And then in English, asks Michael to take him to America, says he'll be his best bodyguard, and then sings the national anthem. I mean, the point is pretty much made in the final film anyway, but this scene really doubles down on Fabrizio's desperation to go to America. In actual fact, the man was paid off by Barzini's people and offered passage to the States for his work in the assassination. Of course, at this point in the movie, we're not supposed to know that it was Barzini all along, but in any case, in the book the movie is based on, in spite of failing his mission, Fabrizio does make it to America. In Mario Puzo's novel, Fabrizio's role is very similar to the film, except Michael does get his revenge. Fabrizio's death comes as part of the five family hit, or the baptism of fire as it's known, when Michael took out the heads of the five families simultaneously. Other enemies are also eliminated, like the casino owner Mo Green, and Fabrizio is one of them, after having been identified by a tattoo he had. A Corleone goon is sent to a pizzeria that Fabrizio owned and worked at, and executes him there. As the book says, the gunman said, "Fabrizio, Michael Corleone sends you his regards." He extended the gun so that it was only a few inches from the countryman's skull, and pulled the trigger. Now, though he pretty much disappears from the movie after the car bombing, there are deleted scenes that reference him, and his pizzeria death is even depicted. When Michael wakes up days after the car bombing, one of his first words are, "Get me Fabrizio, find him," before he slips back into unconsciousness. It shows that, in true mafioso fashion, his first instinct was not mourning his wife, but fiery revenge. In terms of the deleted scene, there's more poetic justice than in the book. as like with Michael's wife, Fabrizio is blown up in a car bombing. Al Neri discusses him with Michael, saying he has changed his name, he has an American wife and 2 small kids, having come over illegally, sponsored by the Barzini family. All it takes for Michael is a look, with a tear in his eye, to give the order. Fabrizio is then shown coming out of the pizza shop, gets into his car, and then it blows up, with him crawling out for a few seconds before dying. He remains alive just long enough to comprehend who did this to him and why, before he slumps over. This actually occurs in the second movie and is set before Michael walks into his son's bedroom at the Lake Tahoe house. So in a way, the storyline is left open-ended in the first movie, with Michael wanting to find Fabrizio, but the revenge coming in the second movie. I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. If they included the scene of Michael saying, "Find Fabrizio," in the first film, I'd probably want Fabrizio's death to occur in the first film also. It fits with the momentum of the movie, Michael settling all family business. Although, it happening a long time later in the second film does highlight how the mob never forgets you and will one day track you down. But the headshots of Fabrizio to remind us who he is, followed by his sudden death after the Lake Tahoe party, does come off as a bit awkwardly placed. By this point in the film, we're getting to grips with the new storyline, the new characters the movie throws at us. Does Fabrizio really matter by this point? It feels better to have killed him in the original movie, if you're going to go ahead with it. Closes things up nicely. Plus, somehow I imagine Michael would want to be there and witness Fabrizio's death, much like how he witnessed the demise of other traitors, like Fredo and Carlo. Speaking of which, there is another legendary deleted scene where Michael himself takes out Fabrizio. Legendary because it's never been released, even though it was filmed. All we have from it are a few set images. This scene was set to be part of the first film, not the second, and takes place after the hit on Carlo. The information we have is that after Carlo is garroted, Michael and Al Neri get into a car and drive off, and Michael arrives at a pizza joint with something under his coat. As he enters, his eyes fix on something, and we cut to the treacherous Fabrizio, spinning a pizza behind the counter. We hear a voiceover of Michael shouting, "Apollina, no!" and the car bombing. Fabrizio sees Michael, stopping dead in his tracks. Michael lets the coat fall to the ground, revealing Fabrizio's own rifle. "Hello, Fabrizio," he says, before he starts blasting. He then leaves the shotgun on Fabrizio's back, and the next scene would have been the one where Connie rushes into Michael's office and he and Kay talk, essentially the end of the film. The main thing left from this scene is a famous image of Al Pacino as Michael Corleone holding the shotgun. I'm not so sure about this scene. I mean, it sounds cool, but for a film that made a big point about Michael having to go into hiding after committing a murder, leaving the site in such a way that witnesses wouldn't have an opportunity to think, it does all seem a bit brazen, a bit Dirty Harry. The scene was supposed to have been incredibly graphic and bloody, even more so than Sonny's death, but that was why it was cut. I've heard that it was too bloody for the censors, so it was cut, but I've also heard that it was so bloody that it ended up looking cartoonish, so it was given the chop, and now the scene sleeps with the fishes. In terms of the pizza shooting from the second film, it's worth mentioning that there's an added layer to the poetry, in that Fabrizio is killed on the same night where there's a shooting at Michael's home, and the same night Kay plans to separate from him and abort the baby. In other words, another wife and child are taken from Michael, and the circle of violence never stops. There are numerous deleted scenes in the Godfather films, many of which recontextualize or add to the story. Maybe we could do a video in the future on all the deleted scenes. A lot of characters are hard done by the final cuts of the films. Genko, for example, Vito's first consigliere, never appears in the first film, but is name dropped. But as we mentioned in another video, he does appear in a deleted scene. Sonny Corleone is another, a character who has so much more depth in deleted scenes. And there's one, including him, that I consider the best deleted scene in the entire saga, which I talked about in a previous video. So what do you make of the death of Fabrizio? Do you think his death should have been included in the film, or does it work better without it? If you think Fabrizio's death should have been included, which death scene do you think was better? And should it have been placed in the first film or the second film? Let me know in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel and thanks for watching.